I'm so excited for this episode.
I know.
We've been like way overdue to do the American Revolution. So I went and bought a t-shirt.
It's a nice t-shirt.
It is very nice. Happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah, happy belated birthday to Nate.
Were you 32 now?
Yep. Mold. Withering away to nothing.
In case you guys haven't noticed, we changed it up a little bit.
Yeah, got a bar now.
Yeah, we, I don't know, kind of felt like when you guys have the camera and stuff and the people can see us.
Yeah.
It'd probably be better if we didn't look like we were just lounging on our ass, falling asleep pretty much.
Some days it feels like that, but
now we're in a bar.
we got beer.
We do have beer.
That's all that matters. As long as we got beer, we're happy.
We have Sam Adams. I don't know if I'm supposed to show the label. But we have Sam Adams because this is the Boston Tea Party.
Yeah.
Let's go. Because the only tea we drink around here is Liberty.
He's been dying to say that.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to be...
All right, and welcome back to the Historical Blunders podcast. We are two avid history buffs and lifelong friends. I'm Nate.
I'm Jacob.
And today's episode, as we said before, is the Boston Tea Party. Sorry, guys, that we're doing another Boston episode because we just did the molasses flood.
We tend to do that. Like we did
like 2 Australian episodes.
We did like 3 episodes that were the 1970 to 1973.
I think what happens is we get into the like study mode and all this shit is happening in that area, and so we're like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then in our head we're like, what should we do next? Oh yeah.
It's like something around the time that we looked at. Cause
yeah, it happens.
It does happen. It's okay.
It's all right. It'll be all right. You guys will learn something maybe.
No, the Boston Tea Party's funny. It's almost like a bad marriage between U.S. and Britain, or I guess the American colonies.
Yeah.
In Britain, right? I mean, it's funny. It starts with money problems. Most marriage problems. Most marriage problems stem from money problems.
Probably the cleanest divorce in history.
Yeah, I mean...
Except for Mel Gibson's son.
Except for all the people that died.
And, what's the revolution?
The Patriot.
The Patriot. Yeah.
I don't know if I've
Heath
ever
Ledger
seen
dies.
I don't know if I've ever seen it, actually.
I just remember seeing it as like a young kid, because it did come out like 4th, 5th grade, I think. I was pretty young, and then the one scene, there's a cannonball bouncing, and it takes off a dude's leg, and it's just, and then you just hear the cannonball whiz by, like, and it's like, oh shit.
No, but it starts with money problems, right? And then each side escalates the issue to get worse and worse, basically.
I still feel like it's Britain's fault.
Yeah, no, it is. It definitely is. I mean, it's hard to like work out a problem also when you got an ocean between you, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you're mad at someone, you can't go yell at them. If you want to be represented in court, in parliament, you doing okay over there?
Yeah, I just felt tiny.
If you want to be represented in parliament, you have to like get on a ship and go over there.
Yeah, I've never really understood that about Britain. Like they owned so much of the world, but it's all just and the only people that made the decisions were this tiny little island.
Well, and them winning the world basically is what starts this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like this is like a high school relationship too, because it's just like it's never meant to last. It feels like anytime there's a colony that starts getting their feet under them, like they end up revolting.
But yeah, back to Britain.
Back to Britain.
Back to Britain, basically owning everything.
So essentially, I think we'll break this into a couple different parts today. We're gonna talk about how Britain got broke as shit, and
classy way of putting it.
Needed some money, which is really what started their friction with America. We'll go over the Boston Massacre, which predated the Boston Tea Party.
Did.
Shit got real. We'll go through at that time in a trivia segment real quick, and then we'll go through the events of the Tea Party, including Sam Adams.
Yes. Good old Sam Adams.
Because the only tea we drink around these parts is Liberty.
This is going to be a lot tonight, is him saying that. So buckle up, guys.
Buckle up. Get those beans for breakfast bitches out of here. You know,
he's been dying to say that one too.
Beans for breakfast bitches, get back to Britain.
Yes, I agree to that. Fuck beans for breakfast.
It's a lot of bees. Billy Boppy-doo. So let's go through. We're gonna go through broke ass Britain.
Good old broke ass.
Because this is really how it starts, right? Britain's broke as shit, and they need some help.
They've stretched themselves way too thin.
So why are they broke, right? The 7 Years' War happens before this. This is kind of like, so I guess I'll back up a little bit. The Boston Tea Party is pretty easy to explain what happens.
There's a tea party in Boston.
Yeah, they get on a boat and they throw tea overboard.
A boat?
And a boat? Did I say a boat? They go on a boat and they take the tea, and they throw it off the boat. And it pisses off Britain. But like there's a little more complexity to it because like it actually had to do with the tea not being expensive. It was actually because the tea was cheap. So it's not entirely what you think. So you have to go back to the 7 Years' War with Britain. So
you want to know something really funny though about the 7 Years' War?
Please.
Is that it actually lasted 9 years.
I did read that. It's kind of confusing. Someone wrote a book.
But majority of the fighting was within 7 years.
I think there was a dude that wrote a book called 7 Years' War, and everyone's like, yeah, it was the 7 Years' War.
Yeah, totally. 7 of those years.
But basically, the 7 Years' War was about owning the world.
Yeah.
Right?
That's all it was.
It wasn't like, they fought in Europe or they fought in America. They fought in freaking India, in the Caribbean, and North America, Africa, Europe. Like,
yeah.
Basically,
it was a huge war.
It was like when it was all over the place and it was stretched a little thin.
I mean,
right?
The big thing then was, the dominate the trades, and Britain with the East India Trading Company was basically running everything,
making shitloads of money.
Yeah,
I mean, this was the point in the world where like the superpowers were like, hey, found out we can make a shitload of money if we start like taking over places and basically enslaving them, right? Let's call it that, right?
Yes.
You're taking
colonizing.
You're taking advantage of places in the ways you really shouldn't.
Yeah. We're gonna take all your sugar cane.
Because like the French and the British really were the big two opponents in this war.
So each had their own kind of allies and everything.
Yeah, there was a couple of different alliances, but in America specifically, right? You had the French and a lot of the Native American tribes going against the British and American colonies. And Native Americans also were part of there was some tribes that were a part of the American colonies too.
Yeah. What I think is kind of funny though is that like, why'd they settle with the French? Like, of all the places and all the people to ally with, the Native Americans were like, these French guys.
Well,
like oui, and they're like, yeah, oui.
It's a good point. I think so. The French
probably brought the best trade deal.
Well, no. So the American colonies were a lot more dense, and they were on the coast.
Yeah,
and they really had to dominate the land that they were in charge of. But like the French colonies were really just like trading posts. They were stretched really thin, where I don't think it pissed off the Native American tribes as much because like, oh yeah, those are the French guys. They got their posts that they own.
They give a shit every now and then.
And they're like, it's cool. Like they don't really mess with us. We don't mess with them. Everything's fine. And we go our own ways. And it turns out we'll help fight the Americans because fuck the British. Because the only tea we drink around here is liberty.
Liberty.
Okay? So 1 million soldiers ended up dying in this war. So it was a pretty big war. Not the biggest, right? But it's pretty big.
Well, I saw that like people kind of like refer it to as like the first actual world war.
Yeah, the first Great War. I've heard of that too. But it ended up Britain won, right? They got a lot of territories. They signed the Treaty of Paris, and basically the French had to, give up a lot of land to Britain, but at a huge cost. So their debt went from $75 million as a nation to $133 million at the end of it.
Almost $50 million.
That's a lot. Back then especially, right?
But yeah, back then, $58 million. That's like the entire economy of huge nations back then.
Well, it costs so much too, because if it's stretched so thin and it's everywhere,
yeah,
you have to pay to ship your forces out all over the places and then support them, right? It's not so easy to do. It costs a lot of money,
which always baffled me that Britain won that.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously that just means they had way too much fucking.
I think Britain's always been the bank of the world. They've always had the most money. The money ends up winning. So at the end of this, right? Britain's broke as shit, and basically they see it as we helped the American colonies.
How nice of them.
We helped the American colonies. We now have more land for them. Everything should be great. You should be happy. You should be thankful. And also, you kind of have to help pay back the damages.
You have to pay us, please.
So they enacted the Stamp Act in 1765.
Which is really misleading.
I mean, how is it misleading?
I mean, because the first thought when you hear stamp is you think stamps like postal stamps, not an actual
that's true.
Stamp.
I think it's any document they had, they had a tax, they had a stamp on it. So essentially, right, Britain's hey, America, you need to help pay. And Stamp Act was pretty aggressive as far as taxing goes.
Price wise, that's insane.
It is insane. It's way too much. So essentially, they made it so that anytime you have a legal document or a newspaper or licenses, like if you went to school, or even playing cards, which is one of the weirder ones.
That is probably what pushed people over the edge back then.
Yeah, I was dude, I just want to play cards.
They just want to hang out in the tavern,
fucking
with their friends,
lighten up,
and play cards. They're well, you have to pay a tax.
Oui. No, so they're taxing the shit out of America. So newspapers, for example, it was basically I'm going to do it in today's money. It was $2 per sheet of newspaper. Legal documents, it was $60 to $240 in today's money. Playing cards was $24 per pack. That's a pretty decent tax on playing cards.
Though, is that the legal documents? Imagine those stupid 1,000,000-page documents you get. They're yes, that'll be $10,000, please.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, what the fuck?
That's way too much.
And so the bigger thing too is that all sounds it's fairly. I don't know what you'd say okay, it's $24 for playing cards, right? I'm not gonna overthrow my government for $24.
God damn it, you watch me. You watch me. I will do it.
But if you have to go back and look at how much did the average household earn at that time too. So the average income for a house in Massachusetts in 1765 was $5,000 to $6,000 a year in today's money. Which is nothing. So basically, people were broke as shit back then, and then Britain was by the way, we need most of your money.
We're gonna take all of your money.
So I did the math, right? If you get a newspaper a day, you buy 2 legal documents in a year, you get a college diploma, you will have lost 44% of your yearly income just to the Stamp Act.
That's no wonder we fucking did it.
Yeah.
This explains everything.
Gave America the confidence to stand up to Britain. The sheen of the monarchy was lifted
and
here.
I feel that is a scary thing, a confident American.
That's where we found ourselves, the Stamp Act.
Thanks, Britain.
Because the biggest thing was there's no taxation without representation, right?
I hear that a lot nowadays.
Yeah, so so what that means, we heard that a ton in high school too, right? But basically, Americans were hey, if you're going to tax the shit out of us, and even though, okay, it might be fair because we just got the spoils of this war, we at least need to be there when we decide on the tax.
Yeah.
We need to
have
a representative in Parliament.
Yeah.
You need representation for taxation. You beans for breakfast, bitches.
And what's actually kind of funny is Benjamin Franklin was our representative.
Yeah, but he wasn't in Parliament. He was he
was just there fucking everything. He had so many women over there. I think they just were like, "Ooh, you sound different." He's like, "Yep."
So yeah, it's funny. During this time, Ben Franklin was over in Britain as like a American ambassador
like a
or
diplomat,
something.
basically.
Yeah, and like he did a lot of good, especially because he was so witty and intelligent and wise. Like it kind of made people have a different view of the Americans.
He was the original hippie.
Yeah,
make love, not war.
Yeah. So then Americans started getting together and they were like, "Hey guys, this is kind of bullshit a little bit." So in October 1765 in New York City, 9 colonies had representatives come and like discuss what the hell's going on. And they issued the Declaration of Rights and Grievances, asserting that only colonial assemblies have the right to tax the colonies. So, I mean, and it's the thing that really helped to get the whole thing rolling is it's 100% true. Like, you can't tax people just on a whim.
Yeah.
Like, you got to at least give them a chance to decide. Otherwise, it's like you're completely enslaving them.
Especially, I mean, being so far away.
So there was a lot of variance in people that were revolting against Britain at the time, and it wasn't like some of them were like batshit crazy, like metalhead, like we'll talk about the Sons of Liberty. Those guys were pretty intense, but there was also a lot of like well worded and political and you know strong speakers that were very eloquent and intelligent. And John Adams was one of those guys. He was very influential, and he wrote a lot of pieces in the newspaper, eloquently stating like a case against, like, yeah, you know what? We shouldn't be paying all these taxes.
He was a
for
lawyer.
The British. Yeah, he was a lawyer.
A huge time lawyer.
He was actually our second U.S. president too.
That too. But yeah, he was a very well educated man. So that's why he was so able to, you know, kind of be.
There was a lot of like really well put together smart dudes.
Yeah.
During the American Revolution.
What's insane to me still though is how young they all were.
Yeah.
Like from how old we are. Like, I mean, we're 32 and there was dudes, you know, in their 20s over here building a nation.
They were grandfathers at 26.
Well, maybe that had something to do.
I think we're getting out of that time a little bit. It's not as bad as some of the other times we talked about.
Just imagine, though, us at, you know, in our mid to late 20s. Guys, let's start a country.
Fuck it. Dude, what a rush. What a rush that would be, right? I mean, let's admit that.
Those
right?
Jaeger bombs would turn into real bombs.
And that's the thing with this, right? So you have the eloquently put people, but you also got a very aggressive group that starts to form called the Sons of Liberty, which, by the way, awesome name.
Awesome name.
I mean, if we start a band, we should call it Tons of Liberty. But
nothing but patriotic songs.
But
not hot dogs and hamburgers.
But these, like I said, these were the pretty metal dudes. These weren't like nice guys. Like they were pretty much like, fuck the British. If you're a loyalist, we're gonna basically tar and feather you and ransack your place of business and all that stuff.
Tar and feather's not that bad.
So yeah, no one's died from tar and feather in history that people have at least recorded. But it's brutal, dude. Imagine.
I mean, you probably die from an infection later.
Perhaps. Because yeah, so you heat up pine tar and you dump it on people. Like hot tar on your skin doesn't sound like fun.
Not. I mean, the reason they use it is, yeah, it's hot and it sticks.
So you're in a ton of pain, and then people like open up pillows and dump feathers on you like a bunch of dicks.
Dude, that's.
And they're like, "Oh, look at this guy, he's a little bitch."
Like, give you another beer? I did.
Yeah, go get a beer.
All right, beer run.
Go get a beer. I don't know. It just feels like tar and feather was a little too metal for a lot of the American people.
We should hire a bartender.
So Sam Adams was probably the biggest leader of the Sons of Liberty. Not Tons. I wanted to say Tons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty. He did a lot of organizing the protests and really took like a leadership type role. But there was also John Hancock, who was like more the money type guy. He was a wealthy merchant.
The cousin of Herbie Hancock?
Yeah, okay.
Tommy Boy.
I know what it's from. It's so funny when he does that too. He's like so confident.
Yeah.
What could have been Chris Farley?
I love Chris Farley. All right.
How do you not love Chris Farley?
He's actually buried in Wisconsin.
Is he really?
Yeah, just outside of Madison.
Really?
Should we go pay our respects?
No.
It's in like a mausoleum too.
Is it like a big grave?
No, it's in a mausoleum with other famous people in Wisconsin, I think.
All right, so there's John Hancock, and there's also Paul Revere. And they all had different roles, but Paul Revere...
Who's that guy?
He did more than just riding out on a horse to say the British are coming.
I saw his house.
It's actually interesting. He was more important for the Sons of Liberty for his engraving work. He did a lot of propaganda type work for the Sons of Liberty.
Like, we'll talk about it in.
It's a big role too. We'll get to it when we get to it.
We'll put a picture that he did.
But the biggest thing that the Sons of Liberty did was I would say they did boycotts, right? And this especially hit the British hard because at this point Britain is just reeling from its debt. So it's funny, like for the 7 Years' War that happened, they like owed money to individual people and like banks and stuff in different parts of Europe, not just like countries. It was like imagine being like, yeah, the Britain owes me like
$40 million.
Yeah, it's just kind of.
I funded their navy, just saying.
No big deal, but they gotta pay me back interest, baby.
Kind of a big deal.
But the boycotts worked so well, and the Sons of Liberty were so effective, and there was a growing movement that actually even like places in Britain, the merchants were starting to oppose the Stamp Act because they're like, dude, we can't sell anything to America anymore. Because those stupid Americans are boycotting everything. So they actually ended up repealing the Stamp Act only a year later, and it totally like was a moral victory for America. It took the sheen off of the monarchy to be like, all right,
it's like, look, they're weak.
They're not that strong. Like the British are it's just a colony, you know.
Look what we did.
Fuck them. They're fucking tea drinking bitches.
Beans for breakfast, motherfuckers.
You guys, it's beans for breakfast, bitches.
That's too many bees.
I'm
gonna sound like I'm drunk if I'm saying
kick
that.
Those beans for breakfast bitches back to Britain.
That's so many bees.
I'm like Eminem.
You wish.
So it gives America its first big victory and a confidence boost against Britain. That's what the Stamp Act does.
Yeah. Oh, nothing else after that? Oh.
That's it. And then after that, we're going to go over the Boston Massacre next.
So one of my favorite things about the Boston Massacre, which sounds horrible, but is that when I was doing the research for it, I just typed in Boston Massacre, and it said 4 kids. I'm like,
wait, what?
Like a way to teach kids Boston Massacre. I'm like, whoa, guys. Whoa. I feel like that's a weird thing, but we did learn this as kids too. So with, the Stamp Act and then the Townshend Acts, which imposed taxes and duties on
Is it Townshend or Townsend?
Townshend, I don't know. I just kept seeing Townshend.
I don't know either.
I don't know how to fucking say it. You act like I'm educated. I am.
Dude, I love this beer opener that you have.
Yeah.
It's so weighty.
It's chunky.
Yeah.
Feels good. It
does feel good.
But yeah, so it was just, on everything, sugar and everything, but tea was the big one, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it. But, so then the Townshend Act really started pissing off everybody, and then the propaganda and all that started. Was already kind of started, but Revere, got Paul.
Artist man Revere.
Yeah, I know, dude.
Most known for his artistic works.
Definitely not, hanging a lantern. Which I've been to the North Church too. It was cool. They have a whole thing in Boston called the Freedom Trail. You follow, and it takes you all the cool places. But
what is the freedom?
So it's literally just bricks in the middle of the sidewalk that you follow a line through Boston to all the historical significant places.
Yeah, but what was the place you said you saw?
The Old North Church where you hung the lantern.
Oh,
And then it took you by his monument, by his house.
that's pretty
Took
cool.
you to where the Boston Massacre happened.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Could you see the blood?
No. They have like a manhole cover plate thing. There's so many clinks. But
We're at a bar, so it's cool.
but Revere is known for, I mean, I didn't know that he was the one that painted it, but the painting of the Boston Massacre with the guy with the troops shooting and everything, that was a huge thing back then.
It's a big hit.
Yeah,
It's a big hit because it looked like it looked like the British soldiers were like in line.
It looked like it was organized against them.
Yeah, it looks like they were in line. They were ready for war, and it was just a group of American guys, that were just getting shot at and slaughtered.
Definitely not doing anything
by a military, which is totally not true either.
Yeah. So everybody's pissed about the Townsend Acts. Britain actually sent more troops to Boston to help maintain order, and it was in.
What could go wrong, right?
I know, right?
You know what? When people are unhappy, just increase the military force.
Yeah, a military presence does not piss off people.
And if there's too much military force, just have them sleep in their house.
In early March of 1770 is when all this started going down. It wasn't immediate, but there was a lot of skirmishes between British soldiers and colonists. There's a lot of just the colonists just yelling at them, calling them out, starting fights.
Can we just say, too, we're talking about Boston, right?
Boston is not known to be a very nice place.
I don't know how far back their reputation dates, but it's definitely prevalent here.
I think majority of it is when the Irish came over.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably it. It makes a lot of sense.
They're probably very proper back then. They were probably like, "Oi,
that tracks." Yeah.
Don't fart. You'll make the flies come. All right. So, March 5th, 1770.
I'm done.
Is when the incident happens.
The incident.
So,
bang, bang.
I mean, with all the previous encounters between British soldiers and colonists, tensions were high everywhere. And inside the old customs building, which is right downtown Boston now, colonists started, yelling at soldiers, and they actually kind of formed a U block in front of the customs house to keep them from going inside. There was a captain there that was kind of trying to keep, the peace, and somebody kept yelling, "Fire, fire, fire." And he's like, obviously, I'm not saying it because I'm standing in front of everybody. Because he was kind of in front of the soldiers. So they're just
being dicks.
It was honestly probably the fucking colonists are like, just shoot them. But
someone's trying to be a martyr.
There was actually a handful of people just kind of yelling at them, and one of them is Crispus. He's an African American. He was actually a freed guy up in the northern part. And he was kind of the first martyr of the American Revolution, is what he's kind of viewed as.
Which is really kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, sucks he had to die.
I mean, yeah. I don't mean like that's cool.
All right. And so the crowd was throwing snowballs, ice hunks, and actually clam and oyster shells. So, I mean, those are pretty sharp.
Yeah, I mean, they're fucking with a group of soldiers.
That have guns.
Yes.
But
they were throwing snowballs too, right?
Yeah, snowballs, hunks of ice, and oyster and clam shells.
Oh, you said it already.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Idiot. Fucking listen, guys.
They threw snowballs.
Yeah.
At the troops.
Yeah, and so actually ended up knocking down one of them, and he got up, and someone yelled "fire," and so he shot.
Oops.
Because he thought he got the order to fire, so he shot, and then everybody shot. I mean, luckily it was 8 soldiers, so it wasn't a whole lot, not like the picture depicts. But 5 people did die, and the other 3 got wounded.
Yeah, not good.
No.
Especially when there's already tensions flaring up between the two
and so
colonies.
It actually got to the point of, because everyone, obviously spread out because there's shots fired. They're not that stupid. But it got to the point of the governor actually having to show up.
Thomas Hutchinson, that bitch.
And actually trying to try to mitigate and try to get peace. His whole plan basically was like, hey, you guys, stop, like disperse, and we'll try these guys.
We got to talk about Thomas Hutchinson too for a second.
Okay.
That guy was basically a British lord.
Yeah.
That was installed as governor of Boston.
That's every governor of
right.
colonies.
So all the colonies at this point, it's not like we're Americans, but we're run by the British government. We're a British colony. We're all Brits. We're all subjects to the king.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like a majority of the public at this time is like, we're British loyalists. We're from Britain. We love Britain. We're not gonna revolt against Britain. That's ridiculous. So like there's like an extremist group, and then this happens, right? Which is not good for that conversation specifically, because now you start to turn a lot of people that weren't turned before.
Well, I mean, this was just kind of the turning point because of Revere's painting, all the propaganda that came out from this. Because I mean, tensions were already high between Britain and the U.S.
Dude, there's like American colonists like crawling away with blood and stuff, like in that painting.
Like, I mean, I remember
good,
in the history book
for propaganda.
I remember
good.
that in our history book.
Yeah,
and I never knew that was Paul Revere that did that, so that's kind of cool. But
I think him doing that was more important than his little ride.
I mean, it still kind of helped.
You think it's not? All right, fine. I'll give in.
He did a lot of things for our young country at the time.
Paul.
This
one's for you, Paul.
Cheers, buddy. We would pour one out for you, but we're in my basement and we're not wasting beer.
And there's already enough flies.
And we're not wasting beer. So later that year,
not yet.
They actually did have a trial for the soldiers that shot. John Adams actually was the one that defended them, which I think is kind of funny.
So that's what I mean. Like, John Adams was a well put together dude that was like, hey, it's almost like when you're doing a revolution like this, you got to convince the silent majority, right? And you don't do that by tar and feathering people. You do it by being just and showing, hey, the righteous path for us is this thing, and we need to revolt because it's the right thing to do. And like, he has to do that by defending the people that
killed Americans.
Yeah.
But so actually 6 of the 8 soldiers were acquitted. 2 of them were found guilty of manslaughter and given reduced sentences. Because
I think it's pretty fair.
Well, I mean, the whole thing was they were being attacked.
Yeah.
They were technically, that's assault. You can't throw snowballs at people. You can't throw hunks of ice. Like, they were being assaulted, and so that's
could have been worse.
The war could have started then and there.
It felt like a pretty fair trial.
Yeah.
Like, reading about the results, like, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, that's not bad for, 1770. All right, and we're going to do the section of at the time. Basically what was going on in the world at the same time this was happening.
So King Louis was ruling France at the time.
Yeah, he was a bitch.
King Louis, what is that? 15?
Yep.
The 15th was ruling France. But France was also recovering from the 7 Years' War. They were broke as shit too. Basically, this period was marked by political and social unrest that basically started the French Revolution.
And the rise of Napoleon.
A little bit later, and then you have Napoleon, and like everything's not that far disconnected,
And at the time, King Charles III was modernizing Spain. So Spain was also colonizing the Americas and all that. Basically, Central America, the Caribbean, South America. That was basically all Spain. Eventually, Portugal was there too.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, speaking of Napoleon, right? Spain was a superpower in the world until they got fucked up by Britain.
In India, the British East India Trading Company was expanding there. Basically, like,
not being the good guys.
No. I mean, the East India Trading Company basically had a monopoly on all traded goods. Because I mean, Britain controlled everything, and so they were like, "Oh, you want certain spices? Guess what? We have them. You want that curry powder? We have it."
That's why the national dish of Britain is
Curry,
curry,
which I think is fucking hilarious. And fish
when they're
chips
living on an island.
with no curry, but they just stole everything. But that's about all we'll do for that. Yeah. The world was kind of boring.
It was.
Except for France. France was kind of...
Not a lot was going on.
No.
The only thing cool happening was America, right?
Was America.
Fuck yeah!
All right, and I think...
On the way to say the motherfucking day, let's do trivia. Let's go! I believe it's time for trivia. Fuck yeah! So let's pull back the curtain, right? This is the first time we've changed our setup audio wise, where now we can actually hear the intro segment and the trivia like little intro, so that's why we're all jazzed up about it. But let's do trivia, right? You have more questions than me? Why don't you start? You have 2? Okay, then I'll start.
I mean, I can start with an easy one though.
Shit, I forgot my answers.
Oh, you fucking idiot.
All right, no, I don't think I did.
I'll start first. So,
yeah, okay, I think I know the answers.
Speaking of Sam Adams,
yeah,
was he actually involved in beer?
I'm gonna say no. Oh,
he was actually.
I feel so bad.
He actually kind of brewed stuff, but he was horrible at it.
Bigger things to attend to.
Well, what's actually funny is he was actually horrible with like money and managing things, and then here he is trying to revolutionize America. But the Sam Adams Beer Company actually named it after him for being, so revolutionary and huge in that area. That's why he named it, not because of that. But
that makes sense. Yeah, I get it. Which continent was most of the tea from?
I'm gonna guess Asia.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh,
it was mostly Chinese tea that was coming in.
What is it? Green tea? Is it Chinese?
A lot of it. A lot of it was green tea. Like, green tea was actually kind of popular.
Green tea's delicious.
All right. What ships were involved in the Tea Party in Boston? It was the Dartmouth, the Eleanor,
which
and...
is a good name. But...
It's your daughter's
I
name.
know. And which is sad that the third ship is actually my favorite name for a boat. The Beaver.
I thought that was funny.
I love that. That is one piece of history that will always stick with me. Because, like... Most ships.
Beaver. To the Beaver.
To the Beaver. Most ships back then have really nice and meaningful names. And then there's the fucking Beaver. I just love that.
Yeah. The Beaver.
All right. I'll do my last question, then you can do your last question.
Ah, yes.
All right. So where did the Sons of Liberty usually meet?
Oh, there was a house in Boston, I thought.
I'm just looking for a general.
Like city?
Like what kind of establishment did they meet at?
A bar.
A bar.
A bar. Tons of Liberty.
Tons of Liberty.
All right.
They're gonna be like, they drink a lot.
Where were the British troops during the Boston Tea Party?
So to that, I feel like they weren't far away. They were just like hanging out at like a fort, right?
Yeah, they were less than 100 yards away.
Yeah.
They were just watching it. They were like, well, the last time we got involved, things didn't go so well. So let's just let them have their little tea party.
Whatever, we get to ship the ships back.
Yeah. So that's what we have for trivia. So now we're going to go into...
Actually...
Oh?
I would like to do something before we get into the final.
Oh, boy. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
All right. So, yes. Before we start the final story, we're going to do something we're hopefully going to keep trying to do. We're going to call this section the Historical Review. But, yeah. Here we got a bottle called Candy Corn Whiskey. It is candy corn flavored whiskey. From good old Clive, Iowa, from the
Dinner Distillery in Clive, Iowa.
Yeah, it is a small batch whiskey. This is the only product they make. And what is really cool is this whole company is 3 people.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a very clean looking bottle.
Yeah, so it's got vanilla, almond, and all these other flavors. But according to them, they are 100% all natural flavors. Nothing
Smells
artificial.
delicious.
It smells fantastic. I am
Here you
so
go.
excited. This showed up last week, and I have been waiting to drink this.
You did open it and smelled it, though.
Oh, I've been smelling it all week. It smells so good.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Candy corn whiskey.
Candy corn whiskey.
I should put the bottle up here. Candy corn.
Candy corn.
Sounds weird, right?
But I love candy corn. Some fat.
I'm not doing the whole shot.
You pussy.
Can I? All right, fine.
Holy.
That is really good.
Oh, that is vanilla.
You know what? It tastes like candy corn,
It kind of does.
but like in a good way.
I love candy corn, though.
I usually don't like candy corn.
There's like a weird... You either like it...
I'll
Or
drink
you
more of it. You want more?
Yeah, give me another one.
So you live here.
I do. So what kind of sucks is it is not available in Illinois. But you can buy it online. So they'll ship it to you. But there are 6 states that it is available in, and according to them, more coming soon. Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and good old Wisconsin.
Takes me back to my childhood. Candy corn, but in a good way. It's
Candy corn and whiskey.
It's not so sweet too. A lot of
It's
times
not
you get
overly sweet.
the flavored whiskeys are a little bit overpowering or cloying. You know, it's not too cloying.
Yeah,
it's really good.
So I'll show the bottle once more. You can follow them at Drink Candy Corn, all one word, on Instagram. Candy Corn Whiskey on Facebook. And Drink Candy Corn, all one word.com, where you can buy it.
Shout out to Candy Corn.
Yeah,
thanks for the bottle, guys.
Holy shit, that is awesome.
All right. Are we moving on?
Yes, now we'll actually talk about the Boston Tea Party.
We've gotten there, guys. We got into how there's a breakup going on, shit's going down, people start shooting people, right? And
People
now
start shooting people.
and now we're at the main event, right? It's time to dump some tea in the harbor, right? The only tea we drink around here is Liberty. Okay, you understand me?
No.
Okay. So it all starts because the British East India Company that was basically taking over the world at the point and kind of being dicks to everyone starts fumbling and becoming like one of those huge pharmaceutical companies that is way too actually no, I should say like GE in the 1990s.
Are you gonna shit talk?
It's true. GE was way too big, right? And when you're way too big, you can't manage everything at the same time. You can do it for a little bit, but then once you start getting new people in, or basically the industry changes, you can't manage all of that stuff. You're way overexpanded. You start taking on debt, and all of a sudden, if you're losing money in a lot of places a little bit, you're starting to lose money a lot.
And everywhere.
Basically.
Yeah.
So at this point, that company is like dying financially. Like they're having to take money from British Parliament regularly to just stay afloat. Literally. So Britain starts to like try and help out. And like at this point they know American colonies are too damn stubborn to like cooperate with the tax at all. So they put in the Tea Act of Britain. And what's important about the Tea Act in 1773 is that it doesn't increase the cost of tea so much in America. It more or less just makes it competitive.
Yeah, because a big thing was the smuggled tea.
Yeah, so most of America at this time was like, screw this shit. We're not buying anything British. Like, they're supposed to buy from Britain their tea.
Like everything.
And tea was like such a huge part of American culture at this point. Like a ton of tea was like,
I wonder why.
Tea was a huge business for American colonies at that point. But they were getting it from the Dutch. They were supposed to be getting it from Britain, but they were smuggling tea in from the Dutch because it was cheaper.
Freaky deaky Dutch.
freaking Britain was too expensive. So Britain like cut out the middleman and did a bunch of logistical things to cut down the cost to be competitive. But then they also at the same time started really inspecting and
they really
preventing
cracked
smuggling.
down on the smuggled tea.
Yeah, they cracked down. That's a great way to put it. They cracked down on the smuggled tea. So it was like, all right, you guys have to buy British tea at this point. It's not okay to buy it anywhere else.
Losing money.
We've made it more affordable. We need you to buy from us. We're losing money. But America was like, I'm sorry, the only tea we drink around here is Liberty. Okay. So, I mean, and it's more complicated than that too, right? Because I think you see with Britain, there's like a pattern that goes on, and I wanted to point out like Jamaica, right? Jamaica had what's called the Navigation Acts in the late 1600s? In the late 1600s, and basically Jamaica was never able to export or trade with another colony other than Britain. The problem is when you can't trade with other places, you get monopolized, and you don't like it ends up totally screwing up your economy because whoever's trading with you can charge whatever they want to charge. They basically enslaved you at that point.
Yeah, and that was a huge thing with Jamaica.
Yeah, and that's why Jamaica's economy today still sucks, right?
Yeah, they got rolled over by Britain.
So America saw this and was like, you know what? I know it's a good deal today, but if we get used to just trading with Britain, we're going to end up struggling and just like sitting at the mercy of Britain, basically.
And we don't want that.
No one wants that, right? So even though it was as affordable as smuggled tea or even cheaper in some ways.
Yeah, because eventually it did get cheaper.
Right. So it was tempting, right? But you can't tempt America unless it's cheeseburgers or joining a war late and winning it.
Yeah.
Because that's
the American way.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. Becca laughs at me. One night we came home. Oh, it's from
from my house.
It was from your house when you made us breakfast on your Blackstone.
Flat top, yeah.
And you didn't make that much. And I came home and I'm like, I still want breakfast. And so I'm in the fridge.
Said something. I would have made.
But we got home and I'm like, what do we have? I'm like, we have eggs. And Becca's like, well, they're about to be out of date. I ate a dozen eggs.
It's time to get to. You ate a dozen eggs when you got home?
I ate a dozen eggs and ate them. All 12.
Like 12 eggs?
12 fried
You ate 12
eggs.
eggs after dinner?
After dinner.
What the fuck, man?
It was so good.
I'm having a hard time comprehending 12
when
eggs.
we're done here, you can ask Becca.
You ate 12 eggs.
Yeah, 12 eggs.
What the
After
fuck?
eating dinner at your house, because I was
Dude,
so
you
hungry
normally
for breakfast.
You don't normally eat that much. We eat together before we do this.
That's because I don't want to shit.
How do you eat 12 eggs?
Dude, I don't eat as much as I used to.
Dude, your cholesterol is going to go fucking bananas.
That's why I don't just... Trick is you don't go to the doctor.
Oh my God.
You never know.
Nathaniel.
Dude, I used to eat so much. So
it wasn't that long ago, right? That was like a year ago.
Nah, it was before we moved in the house because we were at the apartment.
Okay, a couple of years ago.
I think a year and a half ago. I think Becca was pregnant.
I should be skinnier. If you're eating 12 eggs. What the fuck?
I don't do it all the time.
Anyways, all right. So at this point, America says, we're not taking your goddamn tea. And Britain's like, well, I'm sorry, but you're going to take our tea. So we're going to ship it to you. We're going to send it to you anyways. You're going to drink it. You're going to buy it. You're just going to have to deal with it.
We're going to give you the tea bag.
That's what it was. Britain was trying to teabag America.
And that pissed us off.
And we don't do that unless we're playing Call of Duty. That's right, goddammit.
It's the only way we teabag in America.
I do like that.
Dude,
for
that
sipping.
is good.
Candy corn whiskey.
Shut up.
Stop it. Sell out. So, at this point, Britain's like, you're taking our tea. Okay? So, November of 1773, the Dartmouth arrives in Boston Harbor. Dartmouth. Dartmouth?
Dartmouth.
The Dartmouth.
Dartmouth.
The fucking British ship comes and starts to land and says, "Hey, you're gonna take a tea.
You gonna park your car here?"
I give me a keys out of my pants. I call them my khakis. Get my khakis out of my khakis.
We're gonna piss off.
So the tea arrives in Boston, and it's like, all right, shit's about to go down. All right, so the tea arrives on November 30th, and everyone's got to get together to talk about
1773.
Yeah, I said 1773. And then a couple days later, the Eleanor arrives. It's got even more tea on it. And it's like, what are we going to do with all this ships with all their tea?
Yeah, so they organized protests to basically stop them from unloading the tea. They were basically just trying to get them to turn around and go back. It was the Boston Committee of Correspondence met up and basically started forming all these protests and all this and that. They held a large public meeting in Boston at the Boston Committee of Correspondence. Held several meetings and basically just formed all these protests to try to block the ship from being unloaded. They were hoping that it would get sent back to Britain, which, I mean, is kind of a good idea, but at the same time, like, you really think they're gonna?
It would have sent the message.
It would have sent
not
the message.
as strong.
Yeah,
right. It was still,
definitely not as strong.
It was still, a big middle finger, but it wasn't as like rallying-y.
No. And so by December 7th, the Boston Tea Party's organizers and supporters intensify and petition the governor, good old Thomas Hutchinson, demanding to send the tea ships back to England. Governor Hutchinson obviously refuses because
such a bitch.
Do you really want to be the guy to, phone up England, phone up the Queen, be like, "Hey, Lizzie, sorry, they're not buying the tea."
I mean, right, to reiterate, Thomas Hutchinson was like the British sellout of the Tea Party. Essentially, he was the governor of Boston, and he was like, we should really just help the British colonies guys.
Well, basically, he's like, I got contracts with them. Like,
basically,
have to do this.
He's the least cool person in the room.
Nerd. But then that really pissed off the colonists because they're like, okay, he's not going to bat for us. Like, what are we going to do? And so they end up having a meeting at the Old South Meeting House. It ended up being a huge meeting.
Yeah.
Sam Adams was there. Basically, like, we're gonna handle this if nothing's gonna happen.
We need to band together and take care of this.
Yeah.
Right. We can't let them, because as soon as they offload it, they're gonna mix it around with other tea, and it's just gonna end up getting sold to everyone. Right.
So that was December 13th, and then December 16th, the arrival of the old beaver. The beaver
comes to town,
and the beaver was the tipping point for the Boston Tea Party. When the beaver shows up, it gets the people going. And so, December 16th, same day the beaver shows up, they're like, okay, we're fucking doing this now.
But basically, in this meeting, right, at the end of it, they were like, well, we have to unload the tea. This is getting ridiculous. And Sam Adams, right, the leader of the Sons of Liberty, stands up. And he's like, well, this meeting can do no more to save the country. And that was like the signal. And everyone stood up and went outside and got ready to do what they did at the Boston Tea Party. It's going down.
It's going down. So that evening, a large group of the colonists, which I do not agree with what they did, basically blackfaced and disguised themselves as Mohawk Indians to conceal their identities, boarded the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver. And over the course of several hours, and ironically with the British not far away, dumped 342 chests of tea into the Boston harbor.
It was over $1 million in today's money.
That's what I thought I saw. Okay.
It was 46 tons of tea.
That's so much fucking tea.
It would have made 18 million cups of tea.
Such a waste.
18 million cups of tea. I think what's funny about it is there was a guy that started pocketing the tea. and it was very, like, this whole thing was very organized, right? So what's funny is there was a guy there that started pocketing the tea. Cuz like it's a lot of money, and like everyone would be tempted to start taking some.
I mean, that's just like, the cops cleaning up a drug scene. They're like, oh, here's a lot of cash.
Right, a little corruption, but it was so well organized, and people were really trying hard to make it like, hey, we're on the moral hierarchy here.
Yeah, basically, no one's getting this tea.
Right, so the crowd stripped the guy naked and beat the shit out of him for taking tea.
I feel like that's one of the most degrading crimes of all time.
I mean,
why'd you get stripped naked and beat the shit out?
It's fair.
It's stealing tea.
I think it's fair, right?
Yeah.
You're going to do this thing, and if anyone was like starting stealing tea, the story's going to come out, and it's going to be, oh,
they robbed them.
Yeah, right.
That's not really
a totally
protest.
different
That's
story.
Different.
It's not a boycott anymore.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not a boycott.
You lose the moral hierarchy, which, remember, like, the biggest thing with the revolution is you got to convince the silent majority to partake in it. And if you're stealing shit, it's not going to look as good. Even the Boston Tea Party, as it was, a lot of people frowned upon what happened that day.
After hearing about how pissed George Washington was, like, you could just tell that dude enjoyed his cup of tea.
I mean, I don't know if he was pissed, but he was like, not the way to go about it, guys. Okay. No. Look, there's a quote from him after this happened. He said, "The people of Boston have had a great deal of trouble and distress since the tea was thrown into the sea. The destruction of the tea, however, was not necessary for the salvation of our new country. It was a little too much in the spirit of the mob and might lead to consequences that we cannot now foresee."
He was just pissed. He wanted the tea.
He was more like...
You know damn well that dude went to his local shop and was like, "Yes, can I get 10 pounds of tea, please?" And they were like, "We don't have any." They threw it all in the harbor. And he's like, "God damn it!"
Sounds like George Washington was a little peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he wanted to do it. No, I think he was just pissed he couldn't get his tea.
Yeah, I think that might be part of it. He was just a little peanut butter and jelly.
But what I think is funny, though, is that the tea ships did land in New York and Philadelphia, and they just
this wasn't the only place where tea came to, and then like
multiple ports.
Philadelphia and New York were not as fun, and they just like sent it back. They didn't throw it in the harbor or anything. They just like sent it back to Britain, which probably was like, I don't know. It's like, was it the right move, or was the Boston Tea Party necessary?
Yes,
I think it was necessary. Right? What a statement to be like,
we don't need your fucking tea.
Yeah, take your tea and fucking throw it in the river, because I'm not dealing with that shit.
Exactly. It's a big
The only tea we drink around here is liberty. You understand me? Liberty.
What they're saying is, when time travel's possible, we need to go there.
It would have been a cool meeting to go to.
Dude, honestly, if time travel got like recreational created, how fucked up would the historical timeline become? Because you'd have idiots like me and you going back to all these
just watching
dates, just being like just watching someone like, "Hey, you should do that."
Anyways, the Boston Tea Party helped to spur a lot of agitation towards Britain. Britain, straight up, not happy about the whole Boston Tea Party, right? They had a lot of repercussions. They were pretty harsh. They basically cut out Boston from their trade routes completely after that point. And they said, until you pay us back, which I don't know if you know about Boston. Boston doesn't really take kindly to that kind of talk.
Especially nowadays.
So less than 3 years later, right, we end up having the Declaration of Independence. So like things really start to pick up after this point.
This, I think, was the initial spark.
This was basically, the husband moved out of the house and the wife threw the shit out in the lawn, right? Yes. Things are not going to end up well after this point.
Now the neighbors saw it all.
Cops had to come
back.
Things were getting ugly. But that's the thing with the Tea Party. It's a lot of buildup of like, how did you get there? And the whole thing that happened was, everyone kind of knows about what happened, but there's a couple funny parts about it, like especially the fact that tea was cheaper, and that's why America was like, fuck this shit.
They're like, oh, they didn't have to charge us that much. Fuck them.
I don't know. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I think it was more like, at that point, they're like,
it was at that point, Britain. They were just like, fuck Britain.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't blame them one bit.
No way.
Because guess what? We got a good country.
And then after this, the best country in the history of the world was birthed.
Yes. Laos.
And all of those who don't say so, they hate us because they ain't us. They hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us?
They hate us because they ain't us.
Love that fucking movie.
Anyways,
that almost sparked a war.
That's our bit on the Boston Tea Party.
That is.
Next up, we're going to do the Jonestown Massacre.
Jonestown?
Jonestown. Yeah, I told you about that.
Did we?
Did you forget this?
Probably.
I told you. I texted you because my brother is going to join.
Shit. I remember now. All right.
Yep.
So, yes, we're going to have Zach back.
We have a knack for forgetting that a brother is coming to the show.
And they're both named
Dude,
Zach.
your brother showed up last time, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And you're like, my brother's doing the episode, remember? I'm like, oh.
Shit.
Okay.
Shout out to both brothers, Zach.
No, the Jonestown Massacre is a story of a crazy cult that ended up like doing a mass suicide at the end.
Woo!
Little dark, again.
Mass suicide.
It's better than eating people.
Yes.
Which is also coming out in a couple weeks. We got a part 2 dropping. Woo. Big Matt and his sickle mind.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing us Manwich.
He did. It was funny. I was watching the video and it was like, we never said like, oh, you gave us a Manwich jar.
No,
so,
we just.
So sorry for everyone that was just listening.
I just started chanting Manwich.
So you did that. You did that at the end of the episode.
I did at the beginning.
Did you?
Yeah.
I wasn't really listening to you.
Manwich.
Anyways, thanks for listening to us, guys. So this week I want to try something different. I think we have a lot of loyal followers, and we love you guys. We're so appreciative for all the support that you guys give us. If there's anyone that you know, I was going to challenge you guys to send our show to one of your friends that's a little sick in the head or a little bit wants to get weird or might be interested in some of the things that we talk about. If you could, please send it to one of your friends that you know of. We would appreciate it greatly.
That's not us.
It goes a long. Anyways, you guys have a great week, and thanks for listening.